just pull me back.
Of course. Today is August 9th, 2013, 2:15 p.m., and we're sitting with Mr. Darryl Steele.
So, yeah, if you don't mind just kind of taking us through growing up in the area, we can start with that.
I was born in Craig. In 1942.
Okay. And go ahead.
I was raised in Craig. My father at that time ran a Conoco filling station here, and it was during the Range of the Oil boom, and there was a lot of traffic for that. And then when I was 5 years old, we moved to a ranch in Maybell.
Okay.
And I grew up in Maybell and on that ranch, and the ranch that I'm currently living on, I wound up buying it from my parents in 1967.
Okay. And what was it like growing up in Maybell?
It was fun. We were poor. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, but neither did any of the neighbors, so we didn't know we were poor.
Right.
And we pretty much worked on the ranch all summer, went to school at Maybell in the winter, and worked on the ranch all summer. We usually got to go 3 times in the summer. We went to the Ride and Tie Rodeo in Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Over the 4th of July, my dad would never put up hay or work over the 4th of July. We always got to go to the rodeo in Meeker or someplace like that. And then we always went to the Moffat County Fair. And so that was always, that was the big 3 highlights of the summer.
Okay.
And I guess growing up, even when we lived in Craig, I always wanted to be a cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And moving to that ranch allowed me that opportunity. I got a horse when I got to the ranch, and went from there. I rode bucking horses, rode bulls in the rodeos, and growing up, even as an old guy, I still competitively team rode.
And what would you say is your favorite event to participate in?
Today, or if I was young enough to do it?
What? Yeah, if you could pick one. So
and I was actually probably too tall to be. You had to be more precise to ride, but I loved riding bulls.
Okay. Okay.
And I have coached one of my grandsons, and he won a world champion bull riding in the Little Britches Rodeo Association.
Wow.
But I also like roping, and team roping is fun.
Okay. Team roping stuff. So do you switch off which part you rope, or do you?
No, I'm a healer.
Healer. Okay. Yeah. That's the harder one, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, this might be a silly question, but how do you do it? Because when we went to the rodeo and watched, it looked like a lot of the guys were just kind of bouncing the rope off the ground and hoping it'd hook on the heel.
No, one of the most important things is being in the right position.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a bit to it. you have to be in time. Your swing has to be in time with the way the steer is loping.
Right.
Your positioning, when you throw, your positioning is really important. That steer's got to be in the right position. It's up to you to ride your horse to that position. And your swing has got to be right. And you throw that rope in so that the bottom strand hits the ground.
Okay.
And the top strand comes up in the flank. And the tip has to go all the way under the steer. That's the ideal route.
Okay.
And if you do it when the steer's feet, your timing, the steer's feet need to be off the ground, and if you throw the right kind of loop, your bottom strand hits the ground, comes under that steer's feet, and you tighten it up.
I see. That's a lot. That's a lot of precision. Okay.
Plus you've got a header and on a horse and a steer, and you're on a horse, and so all that has to coordinate.
Okay. That's really interesting. All right. And how long did you participate in all that? How old were you when you started?
I think I started when I was about 15, because when I was young, there were no youth organizations or anything. You saved up your money and you went and entered with the big boys. And I think I entered my first rodeo in the bareback bronc riding at 15 years old. And I rode barebacks and bulls up until I was over 40.
Wow.
I rode in the Old Timers Association, and you had to be 40 to be in the Old Timers Association. I rode barebacks and bulls into that. So. And then my wife, one day I said, boy, my reaction time is really slowing down. I'd got bucked off a bull, and my wife says, yeah, old man, maybe you ought to start, if you're going to do something in the rodeo arena, maybe you ought to start team roping. Up until that point, I had not competitively team roped. I'd roped on the ranch and cowboying all my life, but so I started competitively team roping when I was 50.
Wow.
But I did a lot of other things in between this, and I went into the Army.
Okay.
I graduated from high school when I was 16.
Oh.
I went into the Army when I was 17. Got out of there, went to college.
Okay. How long were you in the Army?
A little over a year.
Okay. And then you went to college?
And then got out and went to college. Graduated, got an associate degree and then a bachelor's degree.
What was your field of study?
Biological science. Went to work for the National Park Service as a park ranger. Worked in Dinosaur. Went to their academy at Grand Canyon. And then worked in Yosemite National Park for 2 years.
Wow.
What was that like?
It was fun, but it wasn't near as much fun as being a seasonal ranger in Dinosaur. I was a river boatman and on the rescue team, and then in Yosemite, they took me in as a specialist, and I set up a law enforcement horse patrol in Yosemite Valley in 1967.
That's really neat.
And in all this time, you kind of seem to have traveled around a lot. When you came back, or however often you came back to visit and whatnot, how did you see the community change, whether it was in Maybell or Craig, or Moffett County in general?
Craig, Maybell didn't change too much, except that a lot of the small ranches, excuse me, more of the small ranchers couldn't make a living on the small ranches, and more of those folks were working outside to make money to be able to stay on those ranches.
Okay.
And Craig didn't really change too awful much until in the 70s when
Right.
they built a power plant here, and then it changed quite a bit in the 70s, and then kind of changed back after the construction of the power plants.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been Maybell and Craig both have been communities where people cared about their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
If you were really in trouble, there was always somebody there to step in, give you a hand. The crime rate was low, and people did some kind of wild things that probably in bigger towns you wouldn't have done, but were accepted here, and it was a fun place.
Right.
Fun place to grow up.
Okay. When did you eventually come back to the ranch in Maybell?
I came back in 1968, in the spring of 1968.
Okay.
So after doing the park ranger stuff up in Yosemite?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said earlier you bought the ranch from your parents in 76?
No,
Oh,
78.
78.
Spring of 78.
Okay. So were you working on the ranch in that 10-year span before?
No, I moved back from California, from being a park ranger. I quit and moved back and bought that ranch from my parents,
Okay.
1968.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. And what has it been like being a rancher over the years?
Interesting. My ranch wasn't really big enough to make it pay for itself and make a living, so I had to do a lot of other things
Okay.
in those years.
Mm-hmm.
I tried just ranching for about I think 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years I looked at the bottom line of my account, and I was no farther ahead than I was when I started financially, and we had been working 6 and 7 days a week, 15 hours a day in that
Right.
time period. So I thought, okay, you've got to do something else too. And I wasn't about to give up my ranch, and I started a trucking business, and had some trucks mined uranium ore, and I think we did that till 1979, and then started the price of uranium dropped, and they quit mining at the company that we were working for, and I went out and started a mining and construction business, and mined rock for construction purposes.
Is that when we were mining the limestone as well?
Or is that different?
Yeah, we mined just regular rock for 2 or 3 years, and then I bought a deposit of mineral claims on mineral grade limestone, which happened to be about 3 miles from my house.
Oh, okay.
And then I ran that until 2000 when I sold it to my son.
Okay. And from my understanding, a lot of that limestone that you produced or you mined went to kind of cleaning up the area where the uranium mines were?
Yeah, we had limestone, mineral grade limestone worked really well in various environmental projects. And we had, when I started the mine, there wasn't any mine there. I just bought the claims on the deposits. And we had to have 3 years of production records to be able to bid for the limestone that goes into the scrubbers at the power plant.
I see. Okay.
And as soon as we had 3 years of records, we got that, and that company has had that contract ever since. But it takes the sulfuric, chemically reacts and takes the sulfuric acid from burning coal out of the air. And then we did 2 big, furnished the rock for 2 big reclamation projects in the uranium. One was a Superfund project that cleaned up where they had mined in the 50s, and the other one was for Umeco Minerals, and they were reclaiming a heap leach pile that we had helped mine in the 70s. And we had both of those big projects.
So both the sites out there, outside Maybell, you were involved with?
Yes, we furnished the rock on both of those sites.
Wow. This is just out of curiosity, do you happen to know how much rock it took? How much limestone? Whether it's weighed, if you could just give a rough estimate.
You know, that's a question I can't answer.
That's no problem. I was just curious.
I know for almost 2 years we were running 65 semi-loads a day out the gate of rock. Because we had both of those going on at the same time for a while.
Wow.
A lot of rock.
Yeah. And that mine is still producing limestone?
Yes.
Wow. Seems like a lot.
We are currently doing a geological study and report to determine the amount of mineral grade ore that's left, both quantity and quality. That'll be done probably in a month or 2 here.
Oh, okay.
But there's probably still 1.5 million ton left to 2 million.
Wow.
And that's the only mineral grade deposit in northwest Colorado.
Wow. And you have sold mineral rights to that?
Yeah, it's actually placer mining claims. And my brother and my wife and I are all partners in the company that own it.
Okay.
But I'm starting to get a little old to do that, so.
You don't look it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, so that helped then to kind of supplement income for the ranch.
Right, and to be quite frank, we paid the ranch off in that time period, and owned it free and clear. We almost went broke in the 80s
Mhm.
in the ranching business. Agriculture just, the bottom fell out of it. And we managed to survive
Mhm.
and come out the other side and put it back together like we wanted it
Right.
and survived those bad times and wound up with it paid for, and
Mhm.
it's an operating ranch.
Well, what's your primary livestock? Do you have
Cattle.
Oh, it is cattle. That's why.
I always used to say we raised cattle, horses, and grandchildren.
Would you mind speaking to the ranching business and how you've seen that change over time?
It's better financially now.
Okay.
In the 70s, it was tough.
Why is that? Prices?
Yes.
Okay.
70s and then it was worse in the 80s,
Mhm.
and in the 90s the cow business, the price of cattle started to come back up to a level that you could maintain, make a living and maybe maintain your ranch at that. And it's been fairly good since. It's not somewhere that you probably go out and get rich,
Mhm.
but it's a lifestyle that, in my opinion, you can't beat.
Okay.
There's a lot of satisfaction in going out and raising the hay and taking care of your cattle and thinking that okay, what you've produced is going out there to feed people, that people get a benefit from what you've produced, and you get the lifestyle of being a cowboy, being a rancher,
Mhm.
and the satisfaction that goes with that.
Now, in Maybell, are there a lot of big ranches still?
Yeah, there's some pretty good sized ranches there. There and on to the west to the state line down through Browns Park, and
Okay.
there's some pretty big ranches. A lot of the smaller ranches have gone under, have been bought up by bigger places. And when I was a kid, there were a lot of people that had maybe 50 head of cows
Mhm.
and a ranch and were actually making a living.
Right.
Now, if you don't have at least a couple hundred head cows, you're going to have to supplement it with some other kind of a job.
We've seen a lot of that supplemental income has come from outfitting for hunting.
Mhm.
Is that a trend in Maybell as well?
Yeah, maybe not quite as much as a little farther up into the mountains.
Right.
The game, like at my place, the game doesn't come down there till it's about wintertime a lot. I mean, we have some deer and elk that stay all year,
Right.
but the big numbers, they migrate and then they migrate back.
And those are more preferable for the hunts.
Yeah, if the resident elk, hunters go out and kill a few
Mhm.
of the bulls, and then that's all there is there until
Yeah.
the migration comes. So, but there are some people just to the south of us, and some to the west and around that certainly do supplement their income with hunting, with guiding, and
We've heard it's fairly lucrative
yeah,
for people.
yeah.
Okay. But it's just kind of luck of the draw as to where the herd is. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with anything you're doing.
Right.
I see.
But that saved a lot of ranches.
Right.
In the 80s when that really started, and agriculture was virtually down to tubes in this country, in our nation.
Right.
And people were looking for innovative ways to try and stay in business.
Right.
And that's when a lot of the outfits started guiding hunters and doing things like that to make enough money to stay in business. So it saved a lot of places.
What about farming subsidies? I realize the difference between a farm and a ranch, but has that affected things positively, negatively in the area?
Well, there are no subsidies in the cow business.
Right.
And almost every cattleman I know thinks that's a good thing. I guess we're somewhat of an independent, we can do it ourselves type of mentality.
Right.
And the CRP program has helped a lot of the wheat farmers that were having really tough time making it because of the price of wheat.
Right.
And they put it in the CRP, and that helped them make a living and keep their places. I'm personally not much of an advocate of being paid not to produce something. I don't personally like that. That's part of the thing that makes you feel good about being a farmer or rancher, is to think you're producing something that people are going to eat and help out society or whatever. I mean, you're producing something that is of a benefit to everybody. And so to be paid not to produce kind of goes against my philosophy of life.
Right. Right. Okay. Your haying, is that primarily for the cattle?
Yeah.
It's not for wheat production for outside companies?
No, we pretty much just put up enough hay for our own cattle.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. How difficult do you think it would be to break into that type of business now, that lifestyle of ranching or farming? If you started with nothing.
It'd be pretty tough.
Okay.
I feel really sorry for the young people that might want to do this, that started out with nothing. When I started out, I didn't have much. I'd saved a little money, paid off some student loans, and then saved a little money when I worked for the Park Service. But I went to the bank and talked to the banker and talked him into loaning me the money for down payment on that ranch and to buy cattle and machinery. And banking laws at that point were where a banker could sit there, look across the table at you, and decide if he thought you were good for it. And today, banking laws and regulations have made that virtually impossible for a banker to do.
Right. It's kind of taking that personal element out.
Yeah. I know years and years later, I asked the banker that I borrowed that money from to start with, and I said, "How come you loaned me that money?" And he said, we had talked, and he said, "I sat there and looked across the table at you," and he said, "I thought, this is an old boy whose word is good, and he'll make it. He'll do what he says he's going to do." and so I loaned you the money.
Right. And you don't see that today.
No, I have sat on a loan board of a bank in the last few years, and banking regulations have gotten so tight that if the bank made a loan like that without the person having 20% down or whatever, the banking commission, when they come in and do the audits and stuff, would hammer you if you made very much of that kind of a loan. They might shut you down or put you under restrictions and that sort of thing. So it's made it really tough. I don't know how a young person would get started without having somebody to back them or have inherit a ranch
or some type of collateral or something.
Yeah, have some type of collateral to be able to put up. It'd be tough.
Yeah, I've always wanted to ask that question. I just kept forgetting. We've talked to a few ranchers, but this is good information to have. It's kind of a dramatic subject change, but how did you get involved with becoming, and why did you get involved, if you don't mind, in becoming a county commissioner?
My dad was a county commissioner.
Oh, okay.
In Moffat County. And to go back a little bit beyond that, my grandfather was superintendent of schools of Moffat County when it was an elected position.
Right.
And so I've always been interested in the community. And I guess that was instilled in me by my dad and my grandfather, and that you had to care, you had to help, you had to be active in the community to make things happen and keep things operating as a community.
Okay.
So I guess from the day I bought that ranch in 1968, I had been on numerous boards in the county, in the community, that gave me the background to be a county commissioner. But water boards, I've been on the state water board and different things, but my wife and I have been very active in what went on in our community through those years.
And what was the financial shape of Moffat County in 2002? How would you describe it, I guess?
They were broke.
Okay.
Virtually broke. The Board of County Commissioners that were seated had spent $8 million of reserves in 6 years. The county had gone along and had an $8 million reserve for quite some time. And that Board of County Commissioners spent that $8 million in 6 years. And there was no reserve left.
What did they spend it on?
Well, a lot of things. They oiled a road that they got grants for, and then it was matching grants, and they oiled a good long stretch of a county road. And that probably wasn't, that bad of a thing. They spent a bunch of money on a fire plan.
Fire plan.
which was, I guess if you had all the money that you could think of to use, it might not have been that bad, but the county didn't have the money to implement this fire plan after they developed it. And they had one person on staff full-time and another part-time person to implement this fire plan, and the original cost of money they put out plus the ongoing part of that, and it was a increase in the size of county government at a time when county government was spending more money in operational things than they had coming in. So part of the money that went was to just put an increase in the size of county government. As an example, they hired a director of public works, which they'd never had before. And his salary and his office cost the county in excess of $120,000 a year. So that's another $120,000 that comes off of what you got coming in. And they had really good department heads, and he was just over between the department heads and the Board of County Commissioners. So when I was elected, we eliminated that position and reduced the outgo by the amount of his wages in his office, and the department heads answered directly to the Board of County Commissioners. That's just one of the things that, and there were quite a few of those kind of things that we did. Consequently, the county commissioners had to put in more time. One of the things I did is I kept regular office hours had an office at the courthouse, and the first 2 years I averaged in excess of 60 hours a week. After the election, after I'd been in 2 years, we had an election, things were starting to smooth out, and I got it down to about 45 or 50 hours a week. But I put in that much time for Moffett County as a county commissioner, plus run my ranch.
I was going to say, what was happening with the ranch at that time?
I had one hired man, and we did it.
Okay.
So you really put in like 4 years or something with all that
Yeah.
extra hours you did.
What types of legislation or plans did you try to enact to fix the budget situation, aside from cutting some of these seemingly unnecessary offices?
One of the things that we did that I was really thought was a very positive thing is we put together an oil and gas board. Moffett County is rather unique in the fact that they own oil and gas rights on properties in Moffett County, and that's a little bit of a unique situation. Not every county has that. The Director of Public Works and Dan Davidson, who is the head of the museum here, were my two primary people. The museum owns mineral rights also, and Dan had some experience with their minerals. And before, if somebody wanted to lease county minerals, it was pretty much just a standard deal. You lease them at $30 an acre, and and the royalty was like maybe 11 or 12% or less. We put together the oil and gas board, and between Dan and Jeff Comstock, who was the director of natural resources, and we got the price of mineral rights up that we were leasing out to the oil companies. And that money comes in, and it not only goes to the county, but the school district gets a big benefit out of it. And some other entities have a small share of that. But the county and the school district was actually had a higher percentage of those dollars than the county. And between Dan and Jeff, we determined, okay, this is an area of higher likely of hitting gas or oil. So if we lease mineral rights in this area, this is where we want the price to be. This area over here, the likelihood is less. We can go with the $30 an acre thing. And it did two things. It created money for the school district, which really needed it. It created money for the county, which needed the money. And it increased the price of those minerals being leased out by the oil companies from private individuals, because we raised the bar. And then Jeff Comstock's office became a place that private individuals could call in and say, hey, we've got some minerals and this company's trying to lease them, and here's where they're at. And maybe it was in this really hot zone, and he could tell him, well, if those were county minerals, here's what we would be asking. So the price of minerals came up to the private individuals in the county and helped their economy also.
Wow. Sorry, I'm just making a quick note. That's really interesting. Is that still active today, that
Yes.
board? Okay.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that affects quite a few individuals with all the different claims and everything that are out there, right?
Right, because the whole county is subject to being leased up, and quite a bit of it is public lands, but any of the private lands or the lands where the county or somebody else owns minerals is fairly substantial.
Okay. And what was the shape of Moffat County financially then as you left office?
Actually, we were in pretty good shape. We had reduced the size of county government to one that we could afford. We had 90 days of operating cash in the bank, or in the coffers, and we had begun to build a reserve for use of a better term, a rainy day fund. One of the things that happened during my time is the Bureau of Land Management, before that, had paid for most of the fire costs on wildland fires. They decided they could no longer do that, and we had a big fire, and they said, okay, county, you have to pay for firefighting costs on private land and state lands. So we had to have a fund there to cover those kind of costs, and we put a firefighting plan together that reduced the cost of fighting wildland fires. The BLM and before that, they like to fight them and just pick up the phone and call for air tankers and the whole thing. They didn't want motor graders making fire lines on the BLM property. Well, when I worked for the Park Service, one of my primary duties was was fighting wildland fires.
Right.
I firebossed 20 fires in big timber in Yosemite in 1 year. And so I kind of had some experience to back that up, and we really reduced the cost to the county of what it would cost if you just, brought in all the air tankers and the whole deal.
Right.
We fought fire just as effectively for lesser cost. And but we also, I regressed a little here, but we also began to put money into a fund that we could draw from to fight wildland fire.
Okay.
The mineral rights leasing money that come in to the county, on the county side of it, had to be used for capital expenditures according to the law. So one of the things we did is took that money when it came in. I think we had 45% of that was discretionary to the county commissioners to spend at the time, and the balance of that was split up into 4 different savings accounts. One was for the fairgrounds, one was for the courthouse, I think one was for Parks and Rec, and I'm getting old, I guess. I can't remember what the fourth one was. But so that you had an account. If the county courthouse had a problem or needed remodeling in a certain area, then you would have this fund of money, this savings account, to draw it from.
Right.
Or the fairgrounds would have it, or Parks and Rec would have it, so that you weren't always on this reactionary thing. Oh my gosh, the sprinkler pump at Parks and Rec blew up, where are we going to get the money?
Mm-hmm.
You had a fund that you could draw from and fix it. And those are the kind of ways that we tried to work toward straightening out Moffat County's finances out.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. All right. After you left office, and so it's been a few years since then, how have you continued to see Moffat County, Craig, Maybell, the community in general, continue to develop up to the present?
What do you mean continue to develop?
Develop financially, just how have things been going for the county?
I think pretty well. A man named Tom Gray was elected 2 years after I was, and he and I worked very well, and if anything, he was more conservative than I was, which allowed me to change my role a little bit, because up to that point, I was always the guy that says, no, we don't have money enough to do that. And then I got to move a little bit more to the center and say, yeah, maybe we can work some of these things. Because Tom Gray is the one that was always saying, no, I don't think we got money. But then, after I got out, I continued, at least for 2 or 3 years to really monitor where this was going, and they did a good job of holding the line, of not trying to spend more money than they had coming in, and burning the reserve, and these kind of things. And so I think they've done a pretty good job. We're changing a little bit, and always in the past, there's been at least 2 people from the ag community on the Board of County Commissioners. And right now we have one guy on there that has ag ties, and the 2 people that have declared already to be running for his office, I think lack that. So it's coming away from the ag root background thing in the county commissioners, but that's not necessarily bad. We have some good county commissioners, and hopefully we continue to have those that watch the bottom line.
Right. Okay. All right. Do you have any other stories or anything else you'd like to add or have recorded in an interview?
My wife and I have 4 children, and 13 grandchildren. And right now we have 3 great-grandchildren, and we're expecting another one next month.
Oh, wow.
One thing that my wife and I did in owning a ranch and that sort of thing is our kids were really interested in rodeoing. And we've been pretty successful at that. And all of my children, all 4, were world champions in the rodeo arena in some event. And they have gone on to raise their children, and their children have been very active in rodeo, and most of them, not quite all, but most of them have been a world champion in some event. And a lot of this was in the Little Britches Rodeo Association, which is a nationwide organization.
Little Britches?
Yes. And they've participated in high school and Little Britches high school, junior high, and college rodeos.
You mentioned, oh sorry, go ahead.
And I'm pretty proud of all my grandkids.
You mentioned that it was a little more, difficult for you to break in because there wasn't like youth organizations, so I'm guessing today that's kind of paved the path for your children and grandchildren, or?
Yeah, the Little Britches Rodeo Association, and my wife and I were on the first board of Little Britches rodeos in Moffat County. We were on the first board and helped put that together here.
Okay.
But now they can start at about 5 years old and be in certain events, and then they graduate to an older division, and then finally the senior division.
Right.
So they go from about 6 years old to 18.
Can you jump in at any level, or do you
Yes.
need to start? Okay.
No, you can jump in at any level.
Okay.
The younger that they start, probably the better they are.
Right.
Better they are when they get older. But my wife and I are pretty proud of our grandchildren and what they've done that way. And in running my ranch, getting up in years a little bit, I need some help, and anytime I need help, I just put out the word, and I have grandkids help. They're all good cowboys and cowgirls, and they help me on the ranch, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. What has it been like, just overall, raising a family and grandkids as well in Maybell, in Moffett County in general?
Well, let me put it this way. If you could skip the kids and just go with the grandkids, because the grandkids, you can get them at your place, spoil them, and send them home for their parents to straighten them back up. But I guess I can't think of any place better to raise kids and grandkids than particularly in a agriculture, rural ranch environment. They learn to work, and they learn to take responsibility, and they learn respect for Mother Nature. As a rancher, if you don't take care of your land, you're going to be out of business.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. Some of the environmental organizations come here and they say, wow, this is really neat, but here's what you need to do. Well, the reason it's really neat is because we have taken care of it for the last 100 years that kept it that way, so that it's still neat today.
Right.
And still has the things that they appreciate. So we kind of resent some of the outside pressures to do things, because we've taken pretty good care of it over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, in farming or ranching business, you're going to be out of business. You'll go broke.
We spoke with Dean Visentainer, and he mimicked much the same model with what he talked a lot about sustainability and making sure the environment can sustain itself, and you're not producing too much, and
Yeah.
you're right along with him. So I think that's really interesting. We're both military brats. We've been in quite a diverse amount of environments, whatnot, but we never really stopped to think about it in the way that it's been told to us, and it's been really interesting. Nicest city folk, I guess, if you will, to see, to hear this and see all this firsthand. It's been nice.
Well, I think, and you're right. I think a lot of people don't realize that as a rancher or farmer, you worry about taking care of your land.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to stay like it is or get better.
Right.
You don't overgraze. You don't you take care of the weed problems. You do the things that will make it a better place.
Right.
And there are a lot of people in this world, I'm sure, that don't. They think, oh yeah, the ranchers are just out there tearing it up and this sort of thing. But in my lifetime, and I've got to give the Bureau of Land Management credit here.
Mm-hmm.
In my lifetime, the range ground has improved.
Really?
And a lot of it has to do with fencing in allotments, so that you can really control where the cattle and the sheep and everything graze. So you fence this off and you control it with water.
Right.
And you put water up in an area where they never grazed before. And then they graze that instead of all concentrating somewhere around water and then having to go back. They don't go back into the back reaches of their pastures. And I think we're grazing probably as many cows and sheep today, but the range has continually improved over the last 50 years. By management of your cattle, and you do that with fencing and water, where you put the water.
Interesting. I haven't heard that yet.
No. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, can't think of anything right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
You're welcome.